Why won't Social Security consider the background medical evidence on my case? Okay, because I get this every now and then. When you apply for disability benefits, one of the first things they ask you is, at what particular point did your condition keep you from being able to work? So let's say you say that you became disabled January 1, 2011. So what will end up happening is and I've had this happen with a few clients, where all of a sudden they believe that evidence from 2003, 2005, or stuff like that going way back may be helpful to their case. And here's where I always tell people, Social Security, in the grander scheme of things, they actually do like medical evidence that shows the existence of your condition over a period of time. But two things you need to be aware of. One, the date that's relevant for them is the date you indicated you became disabled. Because if you stop and you think about it in the grander scheme of things, if at all times you've never represented that you were disabled before that date, that information, even though it's background, is not as relevant to your situation. It's not trying to say that it's not helpful or not useful. It's just not as relevant. Kind of think of it like this. And this is going to be a rough analogy. Let's say you're a sports fan and you play and you're a professional football player, and you have a preseason, you have a regular season. Well, the regular season is the period of time that determines whether you go to the playoffs. Preseason has no bearing on whatsoever. So you can go undefeated in preseason, but then have a losing season in the regular season, and you don't get credit because you had a great preseason. Kind of the same situation here. You've indicated that on this date, going forward, you couldn't work because of your medical condition. So guess what? From that date going forward is what Social Security really wants to know about. Because also, the stuff going backwards is not as important to them, because for all intents and purposes, you told them the date going backwards, I'm fine. It just got worse at this point. Or this is the point that it all got turned around. Now, here's the other thing that you need to be aware of, because I've seen this happen too. If you've already had a hearing, let's just use that one as a clean argument, a hearing where a judge has already determined that you're no longer disabled, okay? Or that you're not disabled, excuse me. Under the regulations, it's a phrase we call it's kind of like res judicata. They've already adjudicated those claims in the past. Okay, so it's a nice way of saying, let's say that the judge issued a decision on December 31st, saying that you're not disabled for any period of time from December 31st going backwards. Then you apply again and you say, well, my disability began on June 1st. Now you're thinking in your mind, let me give them all the records that they have from 2009, 8, 10. That's going to be helpful for me on my 2011 application. Under the law, since you've already been decided by a judge that you are not disabled from this point of December 31st going backwards, the court really has no obligation to look at that old evidence. Now they have. Now don't think that they haven't. I just had a court case not too long ago where it's a case in federal court where the judge took in consideration the fact that a judge made a particular ruling based on the fact that there was some evidence that wasn't there. And then subsequently, new evidence showed up during this new application, so the judge relied upon that in order to make its decision. But I tell people, be careful, because a lot of times what happens is that we get background information thinking that this overwhelming amount of background information is necessary to show how bad we are now. But we ignore the fact that under the regulations, really all they have to look at is from the period of time from when you say you became disabled going forward. That's really all they're really interested in. So even though background evidence is helpful, sometimes it may not be relevant.